Hello and welcome to Gameable Audio. This is the absolute first episode, and today, and this time, I have a very special guest, none other than the god composer Thor Myrdal. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
Honestly, or for the podcast?
For the podcast, I guess would be the best.
No, I'm doing pretty good. It was a long day already, a lot of work. Finished the trailer song today, did a lot of work for another game, and preparing also for the conference that I'm leaving for tomorrow. Prepared a set that I'm on the conference that is happening on the ship. Prepared a set with a band, like I said, true professional, singing completely with backing tracks, my band performance, and not with the real bands, like true professionals sing playback, right? It's more like a fun thing there on the ship during the party. But been a lot of work today. But yeah, so far so good. The third last thing for me to do today before I go to sleep. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me, Chris.
That's awesome. But you're a very special guest today. And just like I started out my Swedish podcast, Äntligen Spelmusik, you're basically joining in today as a special guest because you were actually the one helping me out in setting up the jingles and the background music and also the ending music as well. And it was it was such a special occasion because I actually went down to you in Hamburg and we sat down and we worked on it together, basically. Well, of course, you did all the work. I was just backseating the whole thing.
But you said what do you want and what do you not want. So
exactly.
It's a very rare occasion that I have a client actually sitting with me in the studio and advising me in real time. Usually it's forth and back and forth and back and forth and back, and a lot of adjustments, and you try a little bit to read your client's minds here and there, what they mean. Oh, the song needs to sound more blue. What is blue? No, I'm just kidding here. And not at the same time. Every audio professional hearing this will just laugh at this moment and be like, oh, I know this.
I know. I've been talking to a lot of different composers who basically told me the same story as well. Sometimes it's really hard understanding the clients as well.
Same story, different colors.
Exactly. So basically today, since you have been working on a little bit of composition for video game music, but none of these has basically been released as of yet, and we are unable to talk about it in that sense. So we're basically going to go in today and talk more generally about composition and the business side of being a composer.
Yes. Yeah, the recent stuff is not released and under NDA, so it's difficult to talk about what we're working on like for the last year and a half. But we were figuring this out when we talked about it when you were here, and as we said, like it would be interesting to also cover like more of the business side and the tech side a little bit as well than just the artistic side, because I think it's not the last time we're talking about the artistic side, and as soon as we can, we definitely, I think we'll record another episode, right? When I can go more into detail about some music of some titles that we're working on. Definitely. But why not cover this? That is very interesting for people also to know. And since I have been basically being the person in the middle on both sides a lot, and working a lot on the tech side as well as on the business side.
Yeah,
in
we
this
kind
field, it's just interesting to hear a lot of details on those things as well, and to get a better picture and understanding of what to do, what not to do, how to play the ball, basically, in the field of audio in video games.
Yes, and basically we're going to get to know you a little bit more, of course, and that's basically where we're going to start here. And the more we kind of get to know you, we're going to delve into more details about these kind of things. So let's actually start from the beginning, Thor. I know a little bit about your past and where you come from, but none of the listeners most likely know where you're coming from. So, can you talk a little bit more about yourself? When did you actually start within music and felt like, hey, this is my thing?
I started in music when I was 10, basic. I mean, like before that, but not with a thought of doing things in music consciously, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
basically singing in school and in school choir and class. And at some point, I was realizing, oh, I have a voice. So just because also the listeners don't know, but my main instrument that I'm coming from is singing, is voice, and everything else followed after that, basically. So, and when I was 10, I was back then with Netscape. My dad was selling like software for architects and stuff, and we had always computers at home, and I was looking at the internet for a band in the small village where I grew up, for a band that was looking for a singer in the area. And when we came to Germany from Iceland, I grew up between Hamburg and Bremen in northern Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking for a band, I found one band that was looking for a singer. And the guitarist set the website for the band up, and the thing, like the announcement there to look for a singer. He was a guy working in IT, and it was a black metal band. And they were looking for a singer, and I just saw singer. I had no fucking idea what black metal was at all. And I just we were writing forth and back. I created my first email account back then on Hotmail. And we were writing forth and back emails, and he was like, "Yeah, come to rehearsal," and we just check it out. And then rehearsal was in his parents' basement,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to rehearsal as a 10-year-old, and I like the drummer was 19, the guitarist was 26, I was 10, and I'm coming in there, they're looking at me. Who are you? I'm like, I'm Thor. I'm here for the singing role in the bands. And the first thing they did, they started laughing, and then they were like, but you know what we're doing, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're playing music as a band. They're like, yeah, we're doing black metal. And my first question was, what the fuck is black metal? Back then, not with the fuck, but basically, what is black metal? And then they were showing me bands and black metal. As everything who doesn't know what black metal is, black metal, like we talk about the 90s Norwegian black metal, which is just sounds like shit and it's just screaming, high pitched, right? And they showed me bands like that, and they were like, "Can you sing like that?" And I was like, "If you give me a half a year, I can sing like that." And but yes, I could after half a year sing like that. And since then, I'm basically singing. And
Mm.
yeah, I have nowadays my 23rd bands.
That's a lot of
So
bands.
yeah, I during school time I had 4 or 5 bands at the same time. We were like in the area just 3 singers, and basically all sharing the bands there. But yeah, this is how I basically started in music. And then like a year later, I my parents had a piano at home, and I was just sitting down at the piano and start working with the songs and writing down like the melodies and stuff that I was singing. Because even if you're singing guttural, like distorted singing, you're still singing a melody.
Mm.
And I knew that I have a clean voice and I can sing clean and melody, but I didn't really turn back to that. I mean, I used it to create the melodies and write and stuff, and also started composing the first
Mm.
songs and everything, and that I was composing. But I was not singing clean. I turned back to clean singing basically just kind of decade later. So I was only singing guttural and distorted. But I was always composing and writing just melodies, songs, small fragments, and then just piled up and turned into more and more stuff. And I like worked long time in the beginning just on it was all just rock and metal music basically,
Mm. Mm.
and always classical music because kind of in my brain I heard music as more like as an full orchestral layout, so to say, without really being orchestra. It
Mm.
was just like a natural way of for me, like hearing the full arrangement of songs. And then I was yeah, just writing always the first on paper, just note paper, and with a pen, just writing everything down. And at some point I turned to software,
Mm.
and I used a computer because it was just more convenient to do that. And so I was always composing, like every day. I was basically going to school and, writing music and playing video games. That was basically, and performing and rehearsing with a band and everything. I literally had every day rehearsal with one band, sometimes like
Mm.
3 or 4 rehearsals at one day. And
That's
just
insane.
writing music and singing and performing and playing live and everything. And then at some point, I was like, okay, I wrote so much music, and I was turning my interest towards digital instruments and sample libraries and software, media, and all this kind of stuff, just to create demos more
Mm.
easily, to kind of carve out the songs better and stuff. It was all shit back then, honestly, like sample libraries and stuff. And I still write in general MIDI. For me, I always say if a song works in general MIDI, technically, if it's just the typical general MIDI sound, from whatever sound, right? It
Mm.
sounds like crap. But if a song, as an arrangement and as a composition, sounds in that so good, so to say, from
Mm.
its writing and arrangement, it will sound in whatever real instrument recording and arrangement you do, whatever you turn it into, like from the
Mm.
instrumental side, it will be a good song, period. If it sounds
Yes.
in general MIDI good, for me, that's the first rule. And I still work till today like that. I'm really quick in just carving out like a MIDI demo. And if it in general MIDI sounds good without any good instrument treatment, good sample libraries, real recordings,
Mm.
whatever, it will be a good song. It will turn out to be a good production, whatever you do with it. That's a given, because a good song starts with a good arrangement and writing, and it doesn't matter what context it needs to have, right? If it's a metal track, a rock track, pop music, electronic music. I mean,
Mm.
electronic music is more tricky because more technical fiddling around to carve out the right sound. But everything that has organic instrument involvement, so to say, even if it's performed by sample libraries, but
Mm.
organic instruments, if the basis works, you can like create the arrangement in whatever form
Yeah.
and shift it and change it. That's a general rule that I learned at some point. And yeah, that's like basically how the journey has started and how
Yeah.
it carried
So.
me to write music. And then at some point I started from like working with all the technology, right?
Mm.
I at some point decided specifically to do two things in my life. First, become one of the most diverse singer in metal, so to learn basically every style in singing that I want to learn and that I can learn and
Mm.
that I can incorporate into singing in metal. And then second, to become a composer that not just works for the bands in composition, but to
Mm.
learn everything around it from a tech point of view, but also from a production point of view, to be able to write and produce all the music that I want to do. And
Mm.
from that, it stemmed to be that I turned my eye and my ears, so to say, towards every media section, so film, games, yeah, whatever,
Mm.
right? Like whatever it is in audio. So I don't only work solely in video games. It's like a little
Mm.
bit of everything here and there sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did the interest start more in order for you to start incorporating and thinking about, hey, I can work on music for video games too? Because usually when it comes to composers, they usually have some sort of passion because they liked to play games, but they never really understood that they could make games for video games. And all of a sudden, it's like a whole new world open up. When did this
That's
happen for you?
that that's a little bit of a different journey for me. I started to work as a freelancer 14 years ago. Or like there was literally an overnight decision. I was like,
Mm.
okay, I'm gonna become a freelancer, basically. And then like a month later, I had my like all the legal sides to be
Mm,
a freelancer company. Boom! I just did it like no capital, nothing.
mm,
I was like I will figure it out along the way. And in the beginning, I was working on different things as well, and like kind of day job working during the day, and then composing during the night
mm,
or evening, so to say, and working on projects and stuff. And the first projects that I was doing as a composer was back then a lot of video stuff, and also with student projects and a lot of film things, animated film, and all of that kind of stuff.
mm, mm,
And then I just started to go to game jams basically, because I wanted to, not only because my interest in sound design grew as well, and I wanted to try to understand sound design, and
mm, mm,
I was just thinking about where could I do sound design, because I hate doing things that has no purpose or outcome, and just wasting time on something and just grabbing a trailer and re-sound design it. I think it's stupid. It's a good
mm,
way to
mm.
learn things and to try your own way and try to recreate stuff, and like R&D basically, right? Research and development, to like develop your skills, but
Mm,
it
mm,
doesn't lead anywhere. And I was like, how can I combine the learning of a new field with doing something productive with other people together, because you need to work in a team, right? You need to
yeah.
work with other people in other departments. And then I was just going to game jams in the
Okay.
beginning. And this is where I met, bec- I mean, game jams was not per se the reason why I went. There was not per se to join into the video games industry, but
Mm,
I had a composer friend, or just a friend from the industry, who was going to a game jam, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to this game jam. You were interested in sound design. There's a lot of people doing sound design there as well for video games. Why not joining?" And then we work on a project together in sound design. And he was also new into sound design. And
mm,
then we just see what we can do there. And we're working on something productive. We're doing something with other people together, work in a team under a 48 hours deadline. And it's not for nothing. We're not wasting our time. We're literally building something, and then, but we can also not do anything really wrong.
mm.
So I was like, hey, yeah, sounds like a good idea. Let's go. And this is how I got in touch with the video games industry. I'm a
Okay.
gamer since forever. Like since I can turn the power button on a computer, because we always had computers at home due
Mm,
to
mm.
my dad's job. I play video games like
Okay.
back in the days, Minesweeper and this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
On Windows, because we always had Windows computers at home.
Space Cadet.
Yeah. But I always loved video games and was playing video games.
Mm,
And then I was like, oh, also video games, this is fun. And then at the game jam, I met a few people. And yeah, like after a while, they were basically, hey, we are doing more projects, and we're doing student project, and
mm,
we
mm,
need someone for sound design and music. Would you like to join us? And I was like, sure, why not? And then I joined them basically. And after, like, we did just fun projects, and I helped them with their university end project for their diploma and
mm,
everything on the sound design and music side. And then they built a company right after their university, and founded their indie company. And I was at that point in time looking for a new place to basically have my studio in.
mm, mm.
And then because I was till then just having my studio at home, and I was like, okay, this is kind of not working. I'm kind of never leaving.
Yeah.
I want to like kind of seclude that, and extract that from basically my flat. And
Mm,
then I said, they were like, hey, we have more space than we need. Do you want to put your studio into our office basically as well, and have your own area in the office and have your studio here? Because I was talking with them about it, and I was like, yeah, sounds like a good plan. And then I was basically the in-house audio studio, in their office and doing all the audio work on their stuff. And then they were completely focusing, we're talking 2012, 13, right? On
Mm-hmm.
They were completely focusing on AR and VR stuff. I did my first sound design project in 2011 on a VR film project.
Mm-hmm.
This was completely wasteland. There was nothing there. It was a very small community in
Yeah.
Hamburg that was doing VR and AR stuff, and this was basically my first touching point with real development on video games, and that's straight in VR. And back then in Unreal, we basically recreated the audio system because it was shit,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't work. And then the CEO of the company, who was also the main coder, he's a little bit of a genius. Um, I explained him what I need in things to work in the game engine with audio, and then
Yeah.
he recreated a lot of blueprints and everything in Unreal, and they built like an own system. And we sent that entire thing to Epic as well and said, hey, maybe this is the way how an audio engine could work, like how audio people could work
Mm.
with it. And I think like a year later, they rebuilt the entire audio framework and everything.
Ah, that is
And
awesome.
there was a lot of small ideas and stuff that we just sent. We don't know if they took it from what we sent them, but I
Mm.
guess they, because it was coming from an audio person that kind of built that with a coder.
Yeah.
I get, because it was a lot of logical things. I guess they looked at it and said, "Hey, this makes complete sense. Let's use some of that." And this was my first touching point with doing some real projects. Games has also been released. We worked a lot on projects also for the industry itself, a lot of
Mm.
VR projects for big companies in the pharma industry and stuff like that, and also for banks and this kind of shit.
Mm.
And this is how they basically earn the money, and on the side kind of build their VR games. It got released. It was shit back then.
But back
Like
then as well, it was very early in
yeah,
VR as
yeah,
well.
yeah. This
So of course it's
and
going to be a tough market.
the music and this is at the same time I was building sample libraries with a friend of mine as well. Like building sample libraries is a very complex task, and
Mm-hmm.
what we basically did, we built, or like from the musical system for that game, what we built in the game was basically I call it modular dynamic music systems. It's basically like a sample library on music cues.
Mm-hmm.
So music could play infinitely, and it's yeah, it's like its own technical thing as well. This is how I got into touch at the same time with all the technical stuff in game engines, and
Mm-hmm.
started to work on the implementation side and think about systematics, and the same for sound design. I was doing both, like the music and the sound design, and also all the voice acting stuff there.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is basically when I had the first real interaction with the video games industry on product basis that has been also released and has been shipped and this kind of stuff.
Mm.
So yeah, that's 2012, 2013, and I think the game was released 14, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm.
the first one. And that was basically the first time I worked on like a real video games product,
Mm-hmm.
not just game jam stuff and not just experimenting. And
Yeah.
then took all the learning of since I was 10 and mixing and editing, mastering, composing, all this kind of stuff. Took all that learning and knowledge into the video game stuff and tried to kind of tip it over to video game engines and
Yeah.
all the audio work there, which works, of course, because it's the same framework kind of from the knowledge, but
Mm.
then you come to implementation and code and elements. You need to think entirely different in audio because usually you're thinking linear in audio, which you are not in games
Yeah.
anymore at all. So yeah, this is kind of like how I got into touch with video games and
Yeah.
video game sound. and
And
audio
that is
usually.
awesome. For me myself, I mean, we've been knowing each other for quite some time now.
Yeah.
I think the first time I ever kind of got in connection with your name, I think it was around 2018, 2019, and this was in connection to Nordic Game, which you
Mhm.
also are a part of now.
Yes.
But the main reason why I got in contact with it there was because I was interested in finding more composers, and you were one of the composers who were also holding this composer panel at
Yes.
Nordic Game.
Same
Where
game, different music. That's the name of
exactly,
it.
and I really find this kind of composer part, and especially this panel, really interesting. Like you said, it's different composers, different styles, but it is the same type of trailer that you bring to this panel, and then you basically talk about the different strategies, everybody, because from what I understood with these ones, everybody's just getting a soundless trailer in the beginning, and
Yeah.
they do their own music for this trailer. And since
Yes.
we have four different composers, none of them, well, theoretically now everybody knows each other, and they might have the red thread of knowing you. But other than that, they all have their own style. They also have their own kind of engagement and understanding of how to make music. So it's
Yeah.
super interesting in this part. But you have held this composer panel for quite some time, from what I understand.
So to like, okay, first of all, um, I have not been coming up with the same game, different music panel. That has been invented, so to say, by Arnold Nessis, good
Mm,
friend of mine, also a composer colleague from Israel, and Arnold came up with that idea. I think I joined the first one at Nordic Game, if I'm not mistaken, or it might be one time before at Nordic Game.
mm,
But the first time we were doing this at Nordic Game was 15 or 16. I
mm,
can't
mm,
remember exactly which year it was. But Arnold had this idea of taking a trailer without any music. Sometimes we have, if there's no sound design layer, usually at least I like to do this nowadays, and we have been doing that before. If there was no original audio, we create like a sound design layer because it makes it a little bit easier
mm,
sometimes to compose if you have some form of sound design reference as well, to know where to leave dips and like to create tension and this kind of stuff.
mm, mm.
But usually it's just a trailer. We don't get any information about the game itself other than the trailer. Usually, we usually also don't. I mean, it's usually in the trailer, so you know the company name. But the composers also don't go and do any research on that or whatever. And what we grab is an unreleased game and an unreleased trailer
Mm,
where there is barely information about the video game. We do that so that there's two reasons behind that. Reason number one is the composer solely reacts on what he's or she is seeing,
mm.
right, on the video. So it doesn't really conflict with any additional knowledge that you can read up, whatever. So you should
Mm.
completely react on the video. And the other reason is we do that also to give like a small, and it's usually an indie game we pick, to give an indie game that just could also need a little bit of more help in
Right.
visibility and push, just to introduce that to the games industry and to the games community.
Mm, mm.
That's the reason why we also pick something unreleased and something indie. And the interesting part about that is you can take whatever composer, it doesn't really matter how experienced or inexperienced the composer is or what kind of style, even if two composers are often associated with a very similar style in writing music,
Mm,
the results are usually very, very different. And
mm,
that's
mm.
the interesting part because everyone else interprets different if they only see a video.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about that is as well, how we hold that panel is usually everyone writes their version, And what I in the last let's say 3 or 4 years, what I do when I usually collect all the versions, and then I give everyone a quick mastering, so everything is balanced the same way, so to say, same
Mm-hmm.
loudness, same bass management, this kind of stuff. So there's no um, uh, um, masking by different loudnesses and this kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But we completely focus on the creative process and then the creative choices and this kind of stuff. And it's not like something that down to mixing sounds better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I like to do.
So with
Um,
this panel, what is the core goal of this? Of course, it's a
the
panel, so usually
Yeah,
the audience comes in and listen to it and listen to the panel talk about the subject.
the core goal is we introduce all the different versions, and we talk about the differences and the approaches. And the core learning from doing this for many years now is that we usually talk about the a lot about the emotional flow of
Mm-hmm.
the music. Okay, why did you do that? What was your choice making? What was your inspiration? What triggered you to write it that way or that way? And we talk about the storytelling, and everyone, and that's an interesting part, everyone looks at the video and everyone has their own story a little bit to the content they're seeing, which
Mm.
is really interesting because it's actually the same video they see, right?
Yes.
But everyone makes up their own story in their mind from what they're seeing there and kind of their backstory, and write according to that and try to convey the emotional flow of what the video talks to you as a composer,
Mm.
which basically gives already away the core reason why this is also one of my favorite things to do at Nordic Game when we do the composer panel,
Mm. Mm.
because it shows not just the audience, but also always and time again each other as composers,
Mm.
that you can literally have the same story, but every single human being is interpret every experience slightly different,
Yeah.
and that gives away at the same time again the a little bit of the fact that a lot of studios, especially indie studios, they know someone in audio or music or whatever, right?
Mm. Mm.
They talk to one composer, it's a friend of them or study colleague or whatever, and that person is writing the music, and that's all fine and good. But everyone has different strengths and different perceptions of things based on our own experiences that we had through life in
Mm.
our
Mm.
own emotions, right? And what we have lived through and what we have not lived through, and what we convey in emotions into music.
Yeah.
And just based on that pure difference alone, there we have different styles, different sound, different attitude, and
Mm.
we often talk in when we talk with, or like I often talk about that in panel talks as well.
Yeah.
How, like I call it like audio to deaf to audio talk. How different things in the syntax that we use to describe music means completely different things to one another.
Yeah.
Because if I talk about fast, it means something completely different to me than to you, or
Yes.
to anyone. Like everyone has a different perception of specific keywords.
Mm. Mm.
So we often talk about that in the panel as well, how difficult it is to understand the client's intention for the music,
Mm.
and
Mm.
to find the right language and syntax, and just to the trailer, and what kind of keywords are in the trailer, or what kind of scenes and moods are in there.
Mm. Mm.
It's very interesting that we perceive different things as composers already, who have all the same knowledge basically about music theory, about technology, about like different styles and
Mm.
instruments and this kind of stuff. We still perceive things entirely different.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is that sometimes you have such a huge gap between the music that has been delivered on the four panel
Mm.
composer panel. Four people write entirely different music,
Yeah.
but there are always key points in the music that stem from the same thought. So, and that is usually something that's very obvious where
Mm.
to do what. It's usually stylistic things, right?
Yeah.
Like we look at the trailer and we know it's in a science fiction setting. We know, okay,
Yes.
we will use something with synthesizers, and someone combines it with metal band, the other person
Mm.
combines it with
Funk.
orchestra, another person does a purely electronic soundtrack. But everyone is like, there needs to be some form of synthesizers, electronic music vibes and instruments in there as
Mm.
well, because it's already part of the graphics, of the style, of the artistic trait of the game, of the trailer that we're working
Yeah.
with, or whatever it is, right? So there are like key factors that we all agree on, that we think of them to be part of the instrumental and musical
Mm.
language in the same way. But then again, like from the entire harmonic and melodic flow, we work different. But
Yeah.
then again, we often have the same moments of where to push for like more dynamic or like a heavier sound or wider sound, more epic sound.
Mm.
Like the entire way how a trailer is edited and cut
Yeah.
and produced, we agree often on the flow of the dynamic in the same
Mm.
way, and we agree often on an overall stylistic setting that needs to be in there to convey the artistic style of the game in
Yeah.
some form, and the dynamic style of the video editing. So
Mm.
those kind of things are similar. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. But then again, it's completely different in the styles. And that is the super interesting part of what makes this panel so fascinating, not just for
Definitely.
audio people, but also for developers. Because one
Yes.
of the most questions we get after this panel is, how do I choose the right composer? And because this completely gave away that it's not the first person that I know that is often the right person for the music and
Mm.
for the game that I'm making, but I should really look for people who really are like experts in that style or that genre.
Mm.
But then again, how do I know what kind of music I need? And my answer to that is usually pretty obvious. I'm always saying, don't choose music that you personally like to be the music for the video game. But
Mm.
think about, if you, like, switch the role, think about if you would play that game, what kind of music would make you pumped and kind of immerse you more into the game? What would
Mm.
that music be? Think about from the player's perspective. If you would play that game, what's the type of music that would make you more immersed into the video game? And if you think about that, you and do that with the entire team, collect those things, and pretty quickly you will get an answer of what kind of style you're looking for, what kind of like skill set from a composer you're
Mm.
looking for, and then, as it is in every field, go out, talk with composers, listen to composers, go research, research, and research, and
Mm.
implement the people early into your projects so
Yeah.
that they can grow with the development cycle and that they can grow into the video game with the music they are creating.
Yes.
And that's usually the answer that I'm giving to them. It is, if you think about it that way, it's pretty obvious to do, but
Yes.
it's not obvious for people to think that way.
No, and
Um,
this is something we see more and more in the development as well. That
yeah,
composers are coming in earlier in the process because
it's good, and it's good. It's
they
good.
tended to be like one of the last things. Like, hey, you need to do the full OST, and you have 1 week to make it.
They tend to be the last thing before marketing department
Yeah.
hits basically it's a push to the outside world. And um, to be honest, it often left composers with the shortest time frame to be able to
Mm.
really carve the music into the video game. And a lot of colleagues in so many video games are doing a fantastic job on these kind of short deadlines at
Yes,
the end of a production cycle. Usually, it is
definitely.
not uncommon that they come in at the last a third or quarter of the entire production pipeline,
Mm,
and still they are doing awesome production work and awesome jobs and really carving
definitely.
it into. But it leaves composers also very sweating and very stressed out sometimes.
Yes.
And like I talk with many colleagues and a lot of colleagues after a project where they need to deliver for a few weeks like maniacs to get the job done.
Yeah.
It leaves them afterwards completely burned out.
Yes.
So if you like that is not healthy from a work ethic perspective as well, and
Definitely not.
from a
No.
healthcare perspective. But at the same time, you will always end up with better results if you implement composers early. They don't need to
Mm,
deliver early a lot of music and stuff, but they are growing. They're part of meetings. They're part of the development cycles.
mm,
They
mm.
get the switch of thoughts from features in video games and all this kind of stuff, right? They grow
Yes.
with the art style, and they can slowly build up and really carve the music into the video game. And
Mm,
yeah, as a composer, you need to be able to talk to every single department, as a sound designer, even more. But to be able to talk to every single department, understand their language. And
yeah.
the earlier you implement composers into your production cycles, the more they talk with the rest of the production team, the more they understand their work field, and the more they can be part of the entire pipeline.
Mm,
So
mm.
that's one of the things that we always talk about also on those panels, because they sometimes also get technical and production
Mm.
technical, so to say. And that is one of the good things about it, about the panel. It's not just purely about the artistic side.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of everything here and there in the audio world, and that makes it really interesting and fun for non-audio people to sit there and listen. And for a lot of people, it's one of the most favorite things to do at Nordic Game, to come to the composer panel and watch that for an hour.
Mm. No, I can definitely agree. It's one of my favorite ones when I started noticing this as well, especially now with the podcast and everything. So, highly recommend it for everybody who's interested in this kind of thing. Though Nordic Game is not really like this open wide conference for everybody. It's mostly for people in the business, basically.
Yes, but other conferences started to copy them. They asked specifically if I could advise how to pull the panel off and how it's been done, and I'm always happy to give that to other people as well
Yeah.
and conferences, and they are always happy. They even asked me if I would come and moderate it and
Mm.
just form it there for them, and I'm always happy to do that because
Yep.
it can never hurt.
Can never hurt. No, we are getting less and less time the more we talk about this as well. So we're
Hey,
getting
you are
closer
the
to the
one that
end.
came late. I have time.
Uh,
I have
can't
more
move on.
beer.
I know we can talk about this for like 3-4 hours without any worries, but we gotta draw the line somewhere, right?
Yeah, of course. Just
But
joking.
one thing I'm interested in, since you've been working on the panel for such a long time, and we want to talk more about the generic aspect of composition as well. Considering the panel you've been doing year after year now, have you seen any differences in how we react to music as well? As you lately were talking a little bit more about emotion, for example. We see a lot of development within certain areas within game development, but have you seen any obvious developments within composition?
Um, Not composition per se. Composition has been always the same job.
Mm,
I mean, I always describe it like that. Our job as composers is not to write music.
mm,
That's
mm.
just our syntax. At the end of like the end of the day, that's literally just our syntax.
Yes.
Our job is actually to write the emotional story behind the story and glue the storytelling, the sound design, and the worlds and the characters with music together. We are
Mm,
basically the glue between all those things. Um, like we talk purely about narrative point of view here, right? In a video
mm,
game.
mm.
But also, the music has the power to drive you further into a specific emotion that developer wants you to go into while you're playing. So to get a little bit nervous because you already start, you let's say you're playing like a RPG and you're going towards a boss and let's take Doom as an example. Doom is a
Yeah.
perfect example, right? You're coming into a room and you already hear in the music how it's been cued. Okay, shit is gonna hit the fans very
Mm,
quickly, and like without you knowing it, if you don't really pay attention to it, your pulse is starting to go up. So
yes.
music has the power to drive you into a certain emotion that you're supposed to feel, that is underlining the things that are going to happen in a bit.
Mm,
So it's like taking a little bit pre ahead, preparing you for what's going to come. At the same time, I like to take Mass Effect as an example. The
mm-hmm.
the moment, right, when you have like at Mass Effect, what was the name of the main character, Shepard,
Shepard.
right?
Yep.
You have the choice there like Shepard can either way die or
Mm,
you make a different choice, right? And the music, it's the only time I cried in a video game because
mm,
that music hit it on the fucking spot. I mean, that music was the perfect emotional trigger for that scene.
mm,
When Shepard is dying, the music that is playing at that time is the perfect emotional trigger to
mm, mm,
for you to feel exactly what you should feel if you build a relationship to the character before. And this is what music is for in many different ways. It is
mm,
a feedback mechanism, point number one. Point number two, it's a relationship builder to the different roles, characters, and narratives in the video game.
mm,
And
mm,
it is the emotion carrier for you as a player to be immersed in the world and feel the right things at the right time that the narrators and the narrative designers
mm, mm.
anticipated to be expressed. That is the job at the end of the day, to write that
Yes.
in sound, to write the emotional story and the emotional story between the lines in music context.
Mm,
And that is working with the sound design in conjunction. So music and sound design, like composers and sound designers, are also talking a lot with each other. And usually if it's a bigger team, bigger production company, you have an audio
yeah.
director who's taking care of all of them, and then voice acting comes on top as well. And that is the other thing. You're never the canvas. You're one stroke at the entire canvas, and
Mm, mm,
that is the other important thing. If you are working on a project, to you're always aware of that you are writing music that needs to communicate with a lot of other things in conjunction.
yeah.
So the job is very it like demands a lot of different things at the same time from you. And writing music is the last thing. You wouldn't be a composer if you would not be good at it. Period.
Mm,
But that is literally just your syntax to do all the different things that I just mentioned previously, like feedback,
yes.
emotions, and so forth and so on. Right? It's just the syntax that makes you or that puts you in the situation to be able to convey those things and to
Yes.
have that communication as another element on the entire production of a video game.
Mm,
That is what composing for video games actually is. And emotions is one of the key pillars, actually, because music is the only thing that we know from the arts that can take my emotion and give it straight to you. We
mm,
don't have any other. The next thing is writing, right? Words
yes.
like literature and uh, uh, poesy and everything like that, right?
Mm, mm,
But the that is the ultimate tool to take the emotions that I want you to feel and
Yeah,
that I am able to write into music to let you feel that at the very exact moment I wanted to feel it.
definitely.
And that's the magic about that job.
Yep.
That's the and that's also the difficulty that it makes this job insanely hard sometimes. You are
Mm,
sometimes just dreaming like of the solutions you need to do because it's occupying so much space of your brain.
yes.
Um, uh, like how to crack that, and sometimes it's just to shift one fucking note. I'm not kidding. Sometimes you shift one note and you're like, "Fuck me, it's so easy," but it took you an entire week to figure it out.
So it kind of feels like game development as well, because sometimes you're
Yes,
really struggling with something, and all of a sudden, oh, it was this
yeah.
basic thing.
Yeah. It's like,
It's
oh
so
no, it
funny
was
because it's
one comma in the code.
exactly before everything kind
Yeah.
of worked and don't work. No, but it kind of comes down to like simple things in the end, and it is so stupid that it could be that simple, because like everybody's doing could be doing music, but not everybody is made for finding that one note to adjust and so on. And of course, it only comes down to either you're more of a natural or you're really giving a lot of hours in order to understand
I mean,
why it is.
99% of music is knowledge, learning, training. The
Mm,
thing that comes, and this is one of the difficulties which makes like not just music but audio in general insanely hard.
mm,
I describe it as you have certain click moments in your ears. And
yes.
I describe it as you start to listen through music. Like you don't just hear music as an entire thing, but you hear every single layer and fragment. Sometimes it goes so far you can tell, but especially because I'm also doing mixing and,
Mm, mm,
like the entire production side of it. Sometimes you're like, I need like a little bit less compression. Like this is crushing it just on that area and the high end or whatever. So
mm,
you're completely listening to the entire music, and you're not just hearing music as a final result product. You're
yeah.
hearing every single nuance facet in the entire sound. And this is like what I mean with your ears are getting these click moments at some
Mm,
point. And this is what makes it also so difficult because you can start writing music, and every single piece of music is new and individual. It's yes, the same basic rules applies like from a technical point of view, but there's so many different vectors basically that control your narrative of how you shape and form the music besides what you actually need to do on the narrative.
mm, mm,
You have so many different factors that you need to consider and take into account while writing music, that it all comes down to training and experience and knowledge.
mm,
And that's 99% of all the things. And then learning, hearing, adjusting, uh, like testing, implementing, going
yeah.
back into it, changing things. 1% is talent.
Mm,
Like literally, you can learn this entire thing without any talent and still be really good at it.
mm, mm,
But talent makes the difference
yeah.
in doing it quick and efficient. And a lot of people who start on the journey of becoming composers as a living or as a job, or audio engineers or sound designers or voice actors or
Yep.
singers, musicians, whatever, everything within the audio field, a lot of people start, and especially, but this already counts already for the last 15 years. You need a decade. I usually say you need around a decade, and just from a hearing point of view, your ears have this click moment.
Mm,
You need
mm,
to have made enough errors and spent enough time with the material, so you start to hear all those nuances, and through it that also help you in composing and writing. You need to
mm,
learn all the different voicings of every, you need to literally know how every single instrument works. You need to study those things and like
mm,
grind
mm,
yourself into it and have that commitment and discipline and passion to do that, and it's not getting boring. And to learn all the technology, all this kind of
mm,
stuff.
mm.
You cannot get away with just writing music nowadays. You need to know all the tech stuff as well. This all comes with it. You need to be able to understand middleware, game engines, to be able to also think about how do I create a soundtrack for a video game.
Yeah.
And besides all the audio technology to learn as well. And
Mm,
the thing is, a lot of people give up very early because they don't see results that really hit it after 2 or 3 years.
mm.
But you just need enough time spent on it and work with it
Keep pushing.
to be able to convey it into a competitive skill set on the
Yep.
market, because there is a lot of people who are really good at it because they're playing half of their life already instruments and they already start to develop those ears,
Mm-hmm.
and they are already working with audio technology, and then like adapting it to video games technology is very easy. Someone who's starting very fresh from nothing and wants
Mm.
to go into game audio, they need a certain amount of time to just get into the purely the tech side of it alone,
Yeah.
besides being like having written any single piece. Just to learn the technology, it's like a huge wall of knowledge you need to just accustom before you literally make those jobs and get like good quality audio jobs to pay well.
Mm.
And so my advice for that is just start early, do it on the side, have fun, enjoy it, and at some point, if you
Go
feel
to
okay,
game
this is,
jams.
yeah, go to game jams. Just start and don't like get the discipline up, be eager to do it, like do the boring annoying shit and all this kind of
Mm.
stuff, all this meaty work and all the parameters and learn all this shit and build slowly up. And at some point you're like, hey, I have the technology stack up, I have the experience. I will just get like a small company freelance permit, but still continue my job and get like the first small jobs in, land my first small placements
Mm.
for some
Mm.
indie games. And usually that comes also with teams from game jams you worked with, the build companies that say, hey, we need someone, and learn everything and soak everything in you can. And you
Yep.
cannot learn too much in the audio world. It's very easy.
It's
And
always
take every
something new.
tool you have on hand and embrace it. It's just a tool in your toolbox you can embrace. And there, honestly, like if you go on the internet and try to learn a lot of stuff, there's this is how you do that, this is how you do that. It's all
Mm.
bullshit. There is no this is how you do something. It's all context based. It's
Yep.
all like whatever works. The only rule that is really true is the only thing that matters is the end result, and does it sound to the context as good as it should sound and as competitive as it should sound, and is it where it needs to be, and is that the quality that is anticipated for the end result
Mm.
from your client or yourself or your team or whatever. There is no right or wrong in audio, and there is no this is true or this is right, or there is no this is the best software to work with. Everything you can work with, literally everything.
Yep.
And I have seen people creating an awesome work with only free shit on the internet, and that's literally the one universal rule in audio. The only thing that counts is your end result, and
Yeah.
that is hitting the context for it. And you cannot do anything wrong or right.
Mm.
Just embrace it. But the thing is that every context is new. So even nowadays, I need to sometimes think completely fresh about a context
Yes.
and do something I would never do. And in technology and with sample libraries, sometimes completely rethink how I use those things.
Yep.
So yeah, this is also the magic about the job. You never
Always
get
something
bored.
new.
Yeah, always something new. You never get bored. You can really always try new things out, and
Yeah.
so you always stay hungry a little bit for trying new things.
And
And
it
yeah,
sounds like you're setting up the barriers for yourself as well in order to just like, oh, this is my comfort zone, and if you feel like you want to explore more, then you are free to do so as well.
yeah. What I like to do, because I mean, if you're doing it as long as I'm doing that, like the audio thing in general, you have a lot of shit. Like a lot of plugins, a lot of sample libraries, a lot of people, instruments, whatever. What I like to do to really do something new and fresh as well, I like to often limit myself
Yep.
and build a limited set of things that I work with. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get the best results of this limitation that I possibly can. And this is also very good. Sometimes you're sitting in front of something like, I can use literally everything. What the fuck am I doing? Make a decision
Mm-hmm.
and limit yourself. And quick decision making. That is the best key advice I could ever give someone.
Yep.
Just commit to something and be like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it this way. You know, and if it doesn't work, you switch it later on the fly. But by committing to doing, so as to say, it's more important to finish things than to make them super fucking perfect.
Mm.
The moment you are finished and you still have a night shift available, until you need to deliver, you can make it perfect in that night shift. And you can be like, okay, now let's carve the fuck out of it and make it really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but finishing is the key. You rather finish than having a perfect result, but it takes like 3 months to get one song done. You rather have a song carved out in one evening and be like, okay, this is it. This is the song, and now I'm gonna polish it. And you spend another 1 or 2 days polishing it, then
Mm.
spending 3 months and preparing everything to the brim and being like, okay, this is now the perfect preparation, the perfect template I'm working from. It's the perfect mixing environment I'm working in. And then realizing, ah, shit, the client wants to change something significantly. I can now put everything down the drain and can
Mm.
start over. You know,
Exactly.
quick decision making, quick feedback, quick delivering, and
That
quick
will help
learning.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also the fun part. You know, if you make a decision, you are having fun, because from that usually the best ideas are stemming if you just go in there and make quick decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overthink things, and this is I think always this is a disease of in general technology work, like every field, not just audio,
Mm.
right? Where we like to often think about things need to be perfect, but
Yep.
at the end of the day, the perfect approach is usually often for our colleagues. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the average consumer and or clients that are playing the games later, they don't hear the difference between using that compressor or that compressor,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
or because they don't have the A/B comparison.
Yeah.
They
And
only
at the
see the
same
end
time,
result.
yeah, exactly. They only see the end result. I mean, looking at Mona Lisa, for example, you can't really tell like which
Yeah.
was the first stroke of paint he actually did.
Exactly. And that's why I like to say the only thing that counts is the end result. And if it
Mm.
is in the quality where it's anticipated for whatever you are working on to be. If
Yep.
I'm mixing a black metal album, that doesn't sound nice. It sounds like black metal. It sounds like trash.
Mm-hmm.
But it is where it should be. That is
Yeah,
the
it's supposed to
anticipated
be
end
that.
result, right? And there was this one a guy at the SAE University. He worked with a black metal band for his end project, basically for his bachelor project,
Yep.
and he worked with the best microphones, tools, and one of the best recording environments, and with really nice, good setup of instruments and everything, and had like really awesome, pristine audio signals. And he turned some of the best recording signals into pure shit by purpose. And it's way harder to turn something that sounds really fucking good into shit than the other way around.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that's something that I realized, to turn something that sounds already good to make it really trashy, and but balanced trashy and within context, it's really difficult, and I needed to do that already. So that's the reason why I'm saying it. But that is the entire purpose of this little X course here.
Yep.
The end result and the purpose of the context is
Mm.
what counts. It doesn't matter if, in your opinion, this should be as good as that. If that is not the brief where it needs to be, you are wrong as an
Yep.
as an artist in every form, right? You need to hit what what the goal is that you should hit, right, in whatever
Mm-hmm.
production. And this is why perfect doesn't count. It only needs to be perfect fit in the context,
Yes.
not in your audio engineering or in your 3D modeling or in your 2D design
Mm-hmm.
vision of the perfect version of it,
Yep.
right? It needs to be with the team and the entire production flow right there where it
Yep.
is. And perfection usually is just 5% more of where you are already, but it
Mm.
takes 90% more time. That's the saying, right? That's like where
Yep.
the saying goes, especially in audio. And
But yeah.
yeah,
But yes, that's I feel like we really went into deep on this one.
yeah, yes,
I
yeah,
thought we were
because it's
going
a
to talk a
basic
little bit more
learning.
on. Yeah, yeah,
It's a
definitely.
basic learning. It goes for
It,
the
it,
business side as well as the production side of things, not
mm,
just in audio, but something I really learned as a freelancer as well that I
definitely.
needed to learn myself,
Yeah.
like
So
like
it's
with the
really nice
heart
to have that just
thing.
said as well, because I don't think we openly talk about this that much. So we're
Yeah.
usually only seeing the end result, and we feel like, oh, it's super easy to make something really good. And as you said, there's a lot of times where only those last percentage to get it perfect are the ones that are most time consuming. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is really problematic, but it's really good that you're being able to get into a mindset where you can actually finalize stuff more than to find perfection. Because in the end, you
Yes.
will learn the hills and the pitfalls out of this experience in the end.
And honestly, my girlfriend is the best experience for that, right? She doesn't hear the difference between mix A and mix B. And
Yeah.
the only and sometimes it's just a little bit of tweaking on EQs and everything. And then she's always bluntly honest, and I show
Mm.
her version. What do you think sounds better? Like it's compression things and stuff like that. And she's like, honestly, I don't hear a fucking difference. Both
So
sounds fucking awesome.
basically, what it comes down to: get someone you can just reveal the music to, and they will help you decide.
Yes, you always need you need the
Second
you need
opinion.
someone that is not just second opinion. I often like get opinions from colleagues that definitely
Mm.
know what to listen to, but I always also have someone as someone to give me an opinion um, uh, that doesn't have those kind of ears, right? To
Mm,
listen
mm.
listen through it like that,
So a
and
non-composer friend.
a non-composer friend, non-audio engineering friend,
Yes.
non-musician friend, so to
Perfect.
say.
Perfect.
That's like, what do you like better? Which version? And if the answer is I don't hear a difference, you know you are already like too close to the material, how we like to
Yeah.
say. And I think that counts also for other departments and
Yeah.
other,
Most likely,
especially
yes.
the artistic departments, right?
Yep.
And I think this is something that like a lot of
We,
fields and areas can
uh,
learn as a feedback
definitely.
mechanism
I think we all need to
in
become
production.
better in this, because we are putting too much time and effort into
Yeah, so
things
every company
that
should
doesn't
hire
act.
someone who doesn't know shit.
Exactly.
It's only and oh wait, isn't that called Q&A? No, sorry,
Could be.
didn't want to
No.
shit on Q&A. I'm just saying, like there should be someone, maybe someone from the biz dev field or whatever,
Exactly.
from a side that has nothing to do with any artistic perception, or from
Yes.
HR, right? That
Yep.
can be a neutral equalizer of, are we spending too much time in those and those and those areas,
Areas. Yes.
to evaluate, are we burning basically money here on the
Yep.
production or not? A little
Yep.
bit of course out of the audio world, but I think this is actually something that companies could still implement better
And
in
be
their production
and be better
pipelines
at.
and
Yep.
cycles.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that is all the time we have for this time, Thor. We will definitely have more episodes to talk about your upcoming
Episode
work as
2
well.
coming tomorrow. No,
No, it's not. No, no.
no, tomorrow I'm on the ship. So
Okay.
no
But yeah,
episode 2 yet.
so for people who found you interesting enough, is there any way for them to contact you, or get to know you better through any social media or anything that they can follow
Uh,
you on?
yeah, just hit my name up on the internet, and every channel you will find there, you can take and reach out straight to me. It will always reach me personally. And
Mm.
if you haven't, because we haven't talked about that, but if you haven't, go to whatever streaming platform or even YouTube and type in World of Sickness and give it a go if you want to hear me perform some metal. as a vocalist, as a singer, and enjoy some melodic death metal where I sing.
It is really good. I was definitely enjoying it during New Year's Eve in Berlin.
And sometimes if you're on a games conference where we might play, you maybe have the chance here and there to see us also perform live, because sometimes we play at video game conferences.
Definitely. And that was also me, Nordic Game last time. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
was great. So I highly recommend. But yeah, for everybody else, you can find all the other episodes of the other podcast, Finally Game Music, at our homepage, videospelsklubben.se. You will also find this podcast at that point as well. You will find it on Spotify and also in your closest podcast apps. Feel free to follow or comment any of our social medias, just either on Facebook or Instagram. Just search for Gameable Audio, which is our new hot branded podcast name. You can also support this podcast for the future content, for quality upgrades, and so on, but also in the end for future composers by becoming a Patreon. And our currently amazing backers that has been still supporting the podcast, even though I haven't regularly been releasing an episode, is our amazing Daniel Lonemark, my parents, Lars and Titti Schenström. And yeah, that is it. Links to where you can to find Thor will be found in the main post at videospelsklubben.se. And with that said, thank you so much, Thor, for joining in. And
thank you, Chris, for having me.
For the next episode, we're actually going to talk a little bit more about composition, but this time with your friend Flo, which is also going to be an amazing episode, most likely. No, it's definitely going to be. Trust me on this one.
Yes.
So, with that said, thank you yet again. And for everybody who's listening in on the podcast, thank you so much for giving your time to listen to my podcast. And I hope to be in your ears soon again. Have a good time, everybody.
Also, for listening to my ramble, everyone. And yeah, thank you. And don't forget to all the shit, like subscribe, like, and all the shit on the podcast.
Share it.
And sharing it, because Chris really interviews a lot of awesome people here from the not just video games music world, but in general, really interesting people and good stuff to discover.
Definitely. So yeah, do share, like. That's the best way for the podcast to gain more followers, and also share our love for video game music in the end. So with that said, goodbye.
Goodbye.